So I'm Helen Fairweather and I lead the engineering program at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and I'm the co-chair with Leah on Engineers Australia, Sunshine Coast Regional Group. I'm also on the board of the Australian Green Development Forum.
So I'm Leah McKenzie, so I'm a civil engineer with about 20 years experience in the industry, and a very proud and motivated member of the Sunshine Coast Engineers Australia Committee and co-chair with Helen Fairweather. So we've got a broad range of people, so we go through from the undergrads at the university that Helen's doing some work with in that space, all the way through to the most experienced people in our industry. And so there's diversity in, as Helen's mentioned before, in gender, but also in age and background and disciplinary side of things. So on purpose, we try to diversify the community, the committee in that space, so we can reflect the industry that we're representing.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great initiative, and
I think it's a good opportunity to get like-minded people together. So I think a lot of those professions have their creativity aspects to them, but by and large they all love problem solving. Yeah. So you put them all in a room and get them to put all their minds into one topic at a time, and often those topics are outside of their traditional silos. So they're getting to be creativity, I suppose, stretching themselves creatively. So you get all those people with their minds in that space, and you're going to come up with some really good options. During this COVID period, it's allowed us to reach a whole bunch of people. So typically, locally, we'd have a group of about 70 people that would get together monthly for our technical presentations. Now those technical presentations are done online, and we're reaching 800 people nationally. So that breadth of stretch and connection with people, it's astounding. So it's a really good opportunity that we've got during such a challenging period.
we had an online forum last week.
Yes.
And was talking about the construction on the Sunshine Coast post-COVID specifically, but looking at so we had somebody from Sydney looking at futures, and then somebody from Smart City talking about the technology, and then looking at it through a lens on the Sunshine Coast. So I think those kind of opportunities are more now, for me, more apparent.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly exciting because, it's society as a whole, everyone's quite time poor. So the fact now that we've taken out that travel barrier to some people, and it's on the line in that online forum, I think that's where people have gone, well, fantastic, it's at our fingertips, let's jump in and get involved, where we previously wouldn't have been able to contact or get in reach with those sort of people. So opportunities are, sort of been reset. So we need to, as a committee, come back now and just look at what are those opportunities we can now take advantage of, particularly as people are getting far more comfortable with the online platform.
So I think there's a great opportunity for us as professionals and practitioners in this design field to interact with those local communities more and make better decisions, because ultimately they're the ones that live with the result of our decisions.
In engineering industry as a whole is really trying to use the recycled materials and so forth. So we've got recycled pavements. We've got the university's been doing some work with some road pavements that actually can do some pollution improvement side of things, so that they filter the water, the runoff water in the pavements and that. So there's lots of technical advancements that we can do as an industry to try to put the environment and the community in a better position as a whole. So in terms of the industry, there's lots of innovations that are happening in that space, but also then just the more sustainable use of materials in general. So I know the university is quite focused on that as well. Yeah, so we on purpose we team up with the electrical and mechanical local group as well, so we can have some shared events as well to make sure that we're, getting that diversity of presentations that are coming to both groups in that space. So that shares, like we talked about previously, the different silos that industries have. So it's trying to break down that silo, because often in our projects it's not a one-dimensional discipline. So there's lots of disciplines involved in our project. So if we get those connections across industry through the connections that these forums provide people, then that's going to produce better outcomes project-wise.
From my perspective, it's around sustainable design and new ways of building. Yeah. I went to the World Engineering Congress late last year, and there was a guy from the UK there, from the MACE group, talking about this new development for building infrastructure, where they use a factory-based approach. So they bring in a whole factory to build a 20-storey building. So it's all fully enclosed. They have essentially rockets on each corner, and they have a big gantry. They build the first floor, all fully fitted out, all ready to go. They fire up the rockets and it jumps up to the next level, and off they go again. So that does a couple of things. It minimises the waste, minimises the labour input because you can automate a lot of it, and it also brings in incredible health and safety because there's no live edges.
So I think from my perspective, it's about looking globally, about what people are doing globally. So like I've worked over in the UK before, and similar to what Helen was talking about, so you do factory production for as many elements as you possibly can, and then you transport those in. So there's still the on-site work that happens, but by and large, walls would come already made with conduits and everything already within walls. So it's like a Meccano set, and you're putting things together on site and you're running cables and what have you, and it is less weather affected, so there's better value for money from a client sense in that space, because you're not going to get the same delays on site. Quality wise it's good, because it's being made in a factory, so you don't have the elements impacting it. So there's a lot of efficiencies that people are doing overseas that we can bring to Australia, and so a lot of them we can probably tweak as we do as Aussies, and we make things a little bit more efficient and more suited to our environment. So I think we can do that a lot more on the Sunshine Coast in particular. We have a lot of growth that's going to be happening, so not just within the Sunshine Coast, but southern in the Moreton Bay area as well, and then also west in the Somerset area. So there's lots of growth challenges that as an industry we're going to have to help come up with some more sustainable options to deal with, because there's limitations. But for industry as a whole is really talking to the school students, so not just the high school kids, but getting in and talking to the primary schools. So the STEM is a big movement these days, but if we can get into the schools and actually teach people what engineers are and what the other disciplines are, and the total, architects, planners and everyone as well, like what everyone actually does. So I've got 3 children myself, and the 2 youngest are twins, so watching them play the other day and they were pretending to be engineers, and I just thought, oh, that's fantastic, because what other kids, apart from kids that have had parents as engineers, are actually role-playing being engineers in that space? Well, kids are naturally inquisitive from my experience, and so they want to know why and how, and that's a natural instinct of what a lot of our industries have, is that as an engineer or a planner or an architect, you want to understand why something is and how something works and how you can make it better, and getting, I guess, part of that natural asset of what children have at the moment and just trying to develop that as they get bigger, then I think that's a real opportunity for all of us to tap into.
So from my perspective, one of the other important areas linked to sustainability is the way we manage our waste. And I had some experiences. I had a great experience a couple of years ago in Nepal, and I met with a civil engineer over there who was doing incredible work in hospitals and schools in managing the waste stream. And essentially it's a closed system. And he has an awful lot to teach us. To my knowledge, we're still burning hospital waste. And I think for us, because it's hidden, then it's not seen as a problem. Over there, it's in your face, and it's I don't know if you've ever been to Nepal, but it's quite distressing to see the level of plastic in the rivers and he shows some horrific photos of human waste on the streets and kids picking through it and that kind of thing. So I'd like to explore how we can incorporate some of that thinking that comes from an organisation called Zero Waste Alliance, the International Zero Waste Alliance, and how we as engineers and others in the profession can think about this.
Yeah. Well, I think Australians' history is very innovative, and so I think putting a problem like that back to us that we previously potentially started to develop solutions for, and now it's back in a slightly different way. There's going to be a market for it, so therefore there's going to be people working on it, so we can try to optimise what we're doing. But in the engineering context, it's how can we design projects better, so to minimise the wastage in that space, or to Helen talked about a closed system, so where, as much as possible, can we reuse within the same project or within a string of projects, or that sort of aim to try to get industry to think about that. Collectively on the coast, I know that there's lots of discussion within industry, like across the different disciplines, and also government jurisdictions. So everyone's talking together a bit more than what we used to. So that's a potential platform that we can use to take that waste discussion forward from the Engineers Australia perspective, is to try to have maybe a forum on it where we try to pull together that broader group to get people thinking about it as a collective.